The year is 2022. The setting is the grand ballroom of the Marriott. It is the keynote address of the Tri-State Agricultural Economics Summit. A young man stands at the podium. His name is David. He is a data analyst from a prestigious university. He wears a suit that is slightly too tight. He speaks with the rapid-fire certainty of the young and brilliant. On the screen behind him are charts, graphs, spreadsheets glowing with columns of numbers. He is presenting his report. The most profitable agricultural operations of the last decade. The room is full of men in expensive boots, men who own thousands of acres, men who talk about commodity prices and futures markets. David clicks a button on his remote. The screen shows the top 10 farms, familiar names, corporate names, agribusiness giants. He clicks again. Now the screen shows the top 5, then the top 3. He arrives at the final slide. Number 1. The single most profitable operation in the three-state region. David pauses for dramatic effect. The name on the screen is not a corporate name. It is 2 words. Sufficient Grace Farms. Below the name are the numbers. Input costs, $12,500 per annum. Gross revenue, $980,000 per annum. Net profit margin, 98.7%. The numbers are a mistake. They have to be a mistake. The profit margin is 3 times higher than the next farm on the list. The input costs are a rounding error for the other operations. David squints at the screen. He clears his throat. He says, "Hold on a moment. Let me rerun this query." The room is silent. You can hear the hum of the air conditioning, the clink of a water glass. David's fingers fly across his laptop keyboard. The screen flickers. The same result appears. Number 1. Sufficient Grace Farms. Owner, Ilara Vance. Someone in the front row coughs. It is the summit's chairman, a man named Frank Miller. He is old now. His hands tremble slightly as he lifts a program to his face. He reads the name again. Ilara Vance. The analyst, flustered, says, "I don't understand the methodology here. The model must be broken." Frank Miller knows the model is not broken. Frank Miller knows the name. He remembers a girl, a long time ago, in his office. He remembers her small, all-cash offer for a worthless piece of land. He remembers his own kind, gentle voice. He remembers the words he used. "Child, this offer is an insult. I am telling you this for your own good. The story of how that girl became this woman, that is the story we are here to tell. On this channel, we find the stories that get lost between the lines of data. The stories of people who were told they couldn't, and who did it anyway. If you believe these stories matter, subscribe to the channel, because you will not want to miss what happened next. Let's go back, not to 2022, but to 1992. The town was small, the sky was big, the economy was hard. Ilara Vance was 22 years old. She worked 2 jobs, one at the diner, pouring coffee for tired farmers, one at the library, shelving books in the quiet dust. She saved every penny. Her hands always smelled faintly of bleach and old paper. Her father's farm was gone, lost 5 years earlier, not to a storm or a fire, but to a loan, and then another, and then a final, quiet visit from the bank. Her father was a good man. He had followed all the advice. He used the best chemicals the salesman recommended. He bought the biggest tractor the dealer said he needed. He planted fence row to fence row. He did everything right, according to the experts, and he lost everything. The debt came first, then the drought. The combination was lethal. He sold the equipment, then the land, then a part of himself. He died 2 years later. The doctor said it was his heart. Ilara knew it was the shame. The quiet, grinding shame of failing at the one thing his family had done for 100 years. He left her with nothing but a memory and a warning. Her grandmother was still alive. She lived in a small rented house at the edge of town. She had a porch swing and a garden full of herbs. She had told Ilara something once, after the foreclosure. They took the deed. They took the house. They took the tractors. But they can't take the dirt from your soul. The dirt is enough. That phrase became a seed in Ilara's mind. The dirt is enough. She saved her money. For 2 years she saved. It wasn't much. $3,450. She kept it in a coffee can under her bed. She had a plan. A small piece of the old farm was for sale. 10 acres. The worst 10 acres. It was rocky. It was sloped. The soil was thin and acidic. Her father had always called it the goat pasture. No one wanted it. It had been sitting on the bank's books for years. Ilara put on her best dress. It was a simple blue one she bought at the thrift store. She walked into the office of Miller Real Estate. The bell above the door chimed. Frank Miller sat behind a large oak desk. He was a pillar of the community. He coached the Little League team. He was the deacon at the First Baptist Church. He had a kind smile and sympathetic eyes. He had known Ilara's father her whole life. He stood up when she entered. "Ilara, what a surprise. Come in, child. Sit down." He gestured to a leather chair. It sighed as she sat. The room smelled of floor wax and old paper files. She felt very small in that big chair. "Mr. Miller," she began. Her voice was thinner than she wanted it to be. "Frank, please. You're practically family." He leaned forward, his hands clasped on the desk. His kindness was a heavy blanket. "I was so sorry to hear about your father. He was a good man, a fine farmer." Ilara nodded. She did not trust herself to speak. "So, what can I do for you today?" "I'm here about the 10-acre parcel, the one off the old county road, part of our old place." Frank's smile tightened just a little. "Ah, yes, the goat pasture. It's still on the books. The bank would love to get rid of it." Ilara took a deep breath. "I want to buy it." Frank leaned back. He chuckled softly. "Well, that's ambitious. What would a young lady like you do with a piece of rock like that?" "I want to farm it." The words hung in the air. Frank's smile faded completely. He looked at her, truly looked at her. He saw her father's eyes. He saw the same doomed hope. "Ilara," he said, his voice soft, paternal, "I've been selling land in this county for 30 years. I know what grows here and what doesn't. You can't make a living off that land. No one can. It's not farmable." Ilara reached into her purse. She pulled out a small, worn envelope. "I have an offer." She pushed it across the desk. Frank did not touch it. He looked at her hands, young but already calloused from work. "What's in the envelope, Ilara?" $3,450. It's all I have. It's cash." Frank sighed, a long, weary sigh. He looked at her with genuine pity. It was not contempt. It was not anger. It was something softer, and in some ways worse. He felt he was protecting her from her own history, from her own hope. "Child," he said, and the word child was a locked door. "That offer, it isn't serious. It's barely the assessed tax value. Frankly, it's insulting to the bank. They won't even look at it. Ilara's face was stone. It's what the land is worth. It's worth nothing. Frank shook his head slowly. That's not the point. The point is, I can't in good conscience sell you that piece of heartbreak. I saw what this life did to your father. I am not going to be the man who helps you follow him down that path. Go to college, get a state job, move to the city, find a husband. You're a smart, pretty girl. Don't waste your life chasing a ghost on a patch of worthless dirt. He believed every word he said. He believed he was saving her. This is the most dangerous limitation, the one imposed by someone who genuinely believes they are protecting you. Certainty about another person's capabilities, delivered with kindness. It is more damaging than outright hostility, because it cannot be fought with anger. It can only be disproven with decades of work. Have you ever been told you couldn't do something? Not by an enemy, but by a friend. By someone who said they had your best interests at heart. How did it make you feel? Drop a comment below. Because what happened next changed everything. Ilara stood up. She took the envelope from the desk. Her hand did not shake. Her eyes were dry. She looked at Frank Miller, the good man, the kind man, the certain man. Thank you for your time, Mr. Miller. She turned and walked out of the office. The bell chimed again, marking her exit. Frank watched her go. He felt a pang of sadness and a stronger sense of relief. He had done the right thing. He had saved her from herself. He was sure of it. Ilara did not go home. She went to her grandmother's house. She found her on the back porch, sitting in a rocking chair, shelling peas into a large metal bowl. The rhythmic snap of the pods was the only sound. Ilara sat on the top step. She didn't speak for a long time. Her grandmother didn't press. She just kept shelling peas. Snap. Plink. Snap. Plink. Finally, Ilara spoke. I went to see Frank Miller. Her grandmother nodded, kept shelling. I made an offer on the 10 acres, the goat pasture. Snap. Plink. He said no. He said my offer was an insult. He said I was wasting my life. He said he was protecting me from my father's mistakes. She finally looked up. Her eyes were the color of a faded sky, clear and deep. Frank Miller is a good man. Ilara flinched. He is, her grandmother said. He just doesn't know what dirt is for. He thinks it's for selling, for putting a price on, for drawing lines on a map. We know what dirt is for. It's for growing. It's for healing. It's for feeding your family. He said your offer was an insult. The grandmother's hands stilled. She looked at Ilara. The insult, child, was him telling you what you are capable of. The insult was him thinking he knew your limits. Never let a man who sells things tell you what is possible. She went back to her peas. Snap. Plink. The dirt is enough, child. Go find another way. And that was the end of the conversation. Ilara stood up. She felt something shift inside her. The hurt was still there. But now there was something else beside it. A cold, hard resolve. She would not ask for permission again. She would not go to a man behind a desk again. She would find another way. The next day, she did not go to the diner. She did not go to the library. She took the coffee can from under her bed. She drove to the other side of town, to a half-acre lot that had been for sale for 5 years. It was zoned residential, but it was oddly shaped. It backed up to the railroad tracks. No one wanted it. The sign was faded and peeling. She called the number. A tired voice answered. She made an offer. $3,000. Cash. The owner agreed without hesitation. 2 weeks later, the deed was in her name. It was a small, ugly piece of land, but it was hers. She stood in the middle of it. The ground was compacted. Weeds grew in thick clumps. To anyone else, it was an eyesore. To Alara, it was a beginning. She did not have a tractor. She had a shovel, a wheelbarrow, and her grandmother's knowledge. She started a compost pile. Huge. She went to the diner and asked for their coffee grounds and vegetable scraps. She went to the barber shop and asked for hair clippings. She raked leaves from the gutters of her neighbors. She built the pile layer by layer, greens and browns, nitrogen and carbon. She turned it with a pitchfork until her back screamed. She was building soil. She was building life. The neighbors watched her. They thought she was crazy. The woman with the pile of garbage. She didn't care. That fall, she covered the entire half-acre in a thick blanket of compost, and then a layer of cardboard she got from the appliance store, and then a layer of wood chips from the tree trimming service. It was called sheet mulching, an old technique, a slow technique. Let the worms do the plowing. That winter, while the ground was frozen on the big farms, her half-acre was alive. Under the mulch, a universe of microbes was at work, breaking down organic matter, creating channels, building structure. She was healing the dirt. In the spring, she pulled back the mulch. The soil underneath was dark, crumbly, rich. It smelled like life. She bought seeds, heirloom varieties, tomatoes with strange names, carrots that were purple and yellow, lettuce that looked like oak leaves. She planted everything by hand, intensively. She used companion planting, basil next to the tomatoes to repel pests, marigolds among the squash. She had no need for pesticides. Her garden was an ecosystem, not a monoculture. She watered by hand with a long hose. She weeded by hand, on her knees. The work was brutal. It was honest. It was hers. By July, the half-acre was a jungle, a riot of color and life. She set up a card table at the edge of the property, a hand-painted sign, fresh vegetables. Her first customers were curious neighbors. They bought a tomato or a bunch of carrots, mostly out of pity. Then they came back. They came back because they tasted something they had forgotten, the taste of real food, grown in real soil. An old woman bought a tomato. She bit into it right there. Juice ran down her chin. She closed her eyes. "This tastes like my mother's garden," she said. Word spread, not by advertising, but from kitchen to kitchen. Soon, there was a line of cars at her card table every Saturday. She sold out in 2 hours. She kept her accounts in a small notebook. The contrast math was stunning. The big farm spent thousands on fertilizer and pesticides to make a small profit per acre. Her input costs were seeds and water. Her profit per square foot was astronomical. She was proving something, not to Frank Miller, but to herself. The dirt was enough. By 1995, the coffee can was full again, and another one next to it. She had saved $20,000. She started looking for more land. Not in town, out in the county. She did not go to Miller Real Estate. She drove the back roads. She looked for abandoned fields, for sale by owner signs. She found a 20-acre parcel. It had been part of a dairy farm that went under. The fields were fallow. The owner was an old man living in Florida. He just wanted to be done with it. She called him, made an offer. $18,000, cash. He accepted. She was now a landowner, a farmer. The work started again, but on a larger scale. She couldn't sheet mulch 20 acres. She bought a used disc harrow, but she used it differently. She did not plow deep. She just scratched the surface. She planted cover crops, clover, vetch, rye, plants that fixed nitrogen, plants that built organic matter. For 2 years, she did not take a single crop to market from that land. She just planted and mowed, feeding the soil. The farmers at the co-op laughed at her. She's planting weeds, paying taxes on land and not harvesting anything. She's as crazy as her father. Ilara heard the whispers. She ignored them. She had a plan. It was a long plan. In 1998, the soil was ready. She bought a flock of 50 chickens. She built a mobile coop. She practiced rotational grazing. The chickens followed the cover crops, eating insects, spreading manure. She planted her cash crops behind the chickens. The fertility was astonishing. She bought another 30 acres that bordered her land. Cash. An old mechanic heard she was looking for a tractor. He called her. Said he had an old Alice Chalmers G, a small, strange-looking tractor from the 40s, perfect for cultivating small-scale vegetables. He said, "Your grandfather pulled my truck out of a ditch in the blizzard of '78. He wouldn't take a dime. The tractor is yours. Don't argue with me." She had allies, quiet ones, people who remembered, people who understood the currency of community. It was more valuable than cash. Let me tell you about the next few years, because this is where the story gets bigger. This is where the quiet work starts to make a loud noise. By 2003, Ilara owned 80 acres, all bought with cash. She had a waiting list for her produce. Restaurants in the city were calling her. They wanted her carrots, her lettuce, her eggs with the bright orange yolks. She hired her first employee, a young woman from the town who wanted to learn. The original 10-acre parcel, the goat pasture, was still for sale. It sat there, empty and overgrown, a monument to Frank Miller's certainty. Ilara now owned the land on 3 sides of it. Her green, vibrant fields surrounded the patch of brown weeds. It was a map of 2 different philosophies, one that trusted the dirt, one that trusted the bank. Frank Miller would drive by sometimes, on his way to a Rotary Club meeting. He would slow his car. He would look at her fields, the neat rows, the healthy crops, the mobile chicken coops. He didn't understand it. It didn't fit his model of the world. He felt something he couldn't quite name. It wasn't regret, not yet. It was confusion, a deep, unsettling confusion. The kind that comes when a fact you have held as true for your entire life is proven false right before your eyes. He would shake his head and drive on. The expansion continued. It was a quiet conquest, not of people, but of land. And not a conquest, but a healing. 2005. She bought another 40 acres, the piece that held her family's old barn. The roof had caved in, but the foundation was good. She paid for it. Cash. 2008. The financial crisis hit. The big farms were struggling. Commodity prices plunged. Fuel costs soared. Debt became an anchor. Ilara's farm was an island. Her fuel costs were minimal. Her fertilizer costs were zero. Her market was direct to consumer. She was not tied to the global economy. She was tied to her community. She lowered her prices, just for a year, to help her customers who were struggling. Her loyalty became legendary. 2010. She bought another 100 acres, cash. She was now farming nearly 250 acres. She wasn't just growing vegetables anymore. She had heritage pigs, a small flock of sheep for wool and meat, a small orchard of heirloom apple trees. Her farm was a complex, integrated system, a living thing. She was not a farmer, she was a conductor, orchestrating a symphony of soil, plants, and animals. 2015. The regional bank that held the note on the rest of her family's original farm was in trouble. They had made too many bad loans. A new bank from the city bought them out. The new bank wanted to clear the books. They looked at the assets. They saw a 400-acre parcel of farmland, underperforming, held by the bank for almost 30 years. They wanted to liquidate it. They hired a local expert to handle the sale, a man who knew the area, a man with a trusted name. They hired Miller Real Estate. Frank Miller was mostly retired by then. His son, Frank Jr., ran the day-to-day business. Frank Jr. was ambitious. He saw the 400-acre parcel not as a farm, but as a subdivision. He saw 200 quarter-acre lots, paved roads, a clubhouse. He saw millions in commissions. He drew up the plans. He started making calls. He needed to talk to the adjacent landowners, to discuss zoning variances and access roads. He pulled the county plat map. He saw the name, Elara Vance, owner of almost 250 acres bordering the property. He picked up the phone. A woman answered. Her voice was calm and steady. He introduced himself. He explained his vision, the new community, the economic boom for the town. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then the woman said, "I think you should come and talk to me in person. Bring your father." The meeting was set for a Tuesday, in the old office of Miller Real Estate. The same oak desk, the same leather chairs. But now there were computers on the desk, and the smell of floor wax was replaced by the faint scent of air freshener. Frank Jr. was ready. He had his presentation, his spreadsheets, his artist's renderings of beautiful houses. His father sat beside him, quiet, looking older than his years. The bell over the door chimed. Elara Vance walked in. She was not the girl Frank remembered. She was a woman in her early 50s. She wore work boots, clean jeans, and a simple wool sweater. Her hair had threads of silver. Her face was lined from the sun. Her eyes were the same, clear and steady. She carried an aura of quiet authority. She did not sit in the client chair. She walked around the desk and looked at the plat map spread out on it. Frank Jr. launched into his pitch. He talked about market value, growth potential, return on investment. He used all the right words. Elara listened patiently. She did not interrupt. When he was finished, the room was silent. Frank Jr. looked at her, expectant, a triumphant smile on his face. Elara looked not at him, but at his father. Frank Miller Sr. would not meet her gaze. He stared at his hands, clasped on the table. Elara finally spoke. Her voice was low, but it filled the room. "I am not interested in a subdivision." Frank Jr.'s smile faltered. "Ma'am, with all due respect, that's where the money is. This is the best and highest use for this land." Elara's gaze was cold. "You and I have a very different definition of highest use." She turned back to the map. "I want the entire parcel, the remaining 400 acres of my family's farm, and the original 10 acres you still hold, the goat pasture. I will make you an offer." Frank Jr. almost laughed. "Ma'am, the bank has an asking price of $1 million for the main parcel alone. We haven't even priced the smaller one." "I know." Elara reached into the canvas bag she carried. She pulled out a single folded piece of paper. She slid it across the desk. It was not an offer letter. It was not a contract. It was a cashier's check. Frank Jr. picked it up. He unfolded it. His eyes went wide. He read the number. He read it again. He could not speak. He handed the check to his father. Frank Miller Sr. took it. His hands trembled. "Pay to the order of Tri-County Bank, $1,200,000 and 0 cents. Signed, Elara Vance, Sufficient Grace Farms." There was a long, profound silence. The sound of 3 decades of work, of quiet resolve, of compost and cover crops and cash. It was all there in that one piece of paper. Frank Miller Sr. finally looked up. He met her eyes. His were filled with a terrible, dawning understanding. "Ilara." His voice was a rasp. I told you not to waste your money." Ilara nodded. "You did. I thought I was protecting you. I know you did." She paused. And in that pause, Frank Miller finally understood the depth of his mistake. It was not a financial mistake. It was a human one. "Being told you can't," Ilara said, her voice softening just a little, "by someone who thinks they are being kind. It is the loneliest fight in the world. You cannot use anger. It is a gift they are giving you, they think. So you just have to go home and do the work and prove them wrong with your life. It just takes a very, very long time." Frank Miller's eyes filled with tears. He had been so certain, so kind, so wrong. What will you do with it all?" he whispered. Ilara looked out the window, towards the hills where her family's land waited. "I'm going to heal it." The story does not end there, because a legacy is not about what you acquire, it is about what you build for others. Ilara did not just buy back her farm, she resurrected it. She renamed the entire 650-acre property the Sufficient Grace Institute for Regenerative Agriculture. She spent 5 years restoring the abused land, planting acres of complex cover crop cocktails, bringing in herds of cattle and flocks of sheep in a managed intensive grazing system, rebuilding the topsoil that had been lost to chemicals and plowing. The land began to breathe again. The birds came back. The insects returned. The streams ran clear. Then she opened the doors. She created a program, a 2-year apprenticeship for young farmers. She taught them how to farm without debt, how to build soil, how to create a direct market, how to run a farm as an ecosystem, not a factory. The tuition was simple, 2 years of honest work, and a promise to teach someone else what they had learned. The legacy rule is this: every triumph is not individual, it is systemic. The ripple effect must be documented. In the first 10 years, the Institute graduated 30 young farmers. 15 of them started their own farms within the 3-state region. They became a network, sharing knowledge, equipment, and hope. They were the seeds of a new kind of agriculture, one based on health, not just yield. Ilara created a scholarship fund, the Vance Family Memorial Scholarship. It was specifically for the children and grandchildren of families who had lost their farms. She was buying back their hope, one student at a time. The community changed. The local economy, once dependent on a few large farms, began to diversify. Small creameries opened, a new butcher shop specializing in pasture-raised meat, a grain mill for specialty flours. The money stayed in the community. It circulated. It built resilience. The quiet devastation of her response to Frank Miller was not in anger. It was in the monumental scale of her success, a success built on a principle he could not understand. That the land's value was not in its price, but in its potential for life. Now we return to the present day, to the ballroom at the Marriott in 2022. The young analyst, David, has finished his flustered presentation. He is shuffling his papers, avoiding eye contact. An old man gets up from the front row. He walks slowly, deliberately, towards the stage. It is Frank Miller. He is 91 years old. He climbs the 3 short steps to the stage. Someone tries to help him. He waves them off. He walks to the podium. He asks the young man for the microphone. David, confused, hands it to him. Frank taps the microphone. It squeals. "My name is Frank Miller." His voice is thin, but it carries in the silent room. I was the chairman of this summit for 15 years. I have been selling land in this region for 60 years. That young man's model is not broken. He points a trembling finger at the screen, still showing Ilara's name. I am the reason his numbers look like a mistake. The room murmurs. 30 years ago, a young woman came into my office. Her father had just lost his farm. She wanted to buy back 10 acres of it. The worst 10 acres. She made me an all-cash offer. It was not a lot of money, but it was everything she had. Frank pauses. He takes a breath. And I told her no. I told her the offer was an insult. I told her she was wasting her life. I told her to go to the city and find a husband. I told her all of this because I am a good man. And I was certain. I was certain I knew what was best for her. I was certain I knew the limits of her capabilities. He looks out at the crowd, at the faces of the powerful men of agriculture. The most dangerous thing in this world is a good man who is certain he knows your limits. My certainty cost that young woman years. It forced her down a harder road, but it did not stop her. It turns out her capabilities were not my business. He turns and looks for a face in the crowd. He finds her, sitting in the back row, quiet, listening. Ilara Vance, he says, his voice breaking. I was wrong. I am sorry. I am so profoundly sorry. He sets the microphone down. He does not wait for applause. He walks off the stage and out of the ballroom. A public confession. A final, desperate act of a man trying to balance a ledger that can never be balanced. Ilara does not stand up. She does not wave. She does not cry. She offers a single, almost imperceptible nod. The work was the answer. The apology was just noise. On the wall of the main building at the Sufficient Grace Institute, there is a simple frame. Behind the glass is not a picture. It is a piece of paper, a check, dated 1992, for $3,450, never cashed. It is a physical artifact, a reminder, that the first step in building an empire is sometimes a refusal. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is being told they can't. They are being told by a parent, a teacher, a boss, a friend. A good person who is certain. A kind person who is sure they know best. Ilara Vance's story is a testament to a quiet, stubborn truth. The world will tell you its opinion of your worth. It will write it down in ledgers and spreadsheets. It will deliver it to you with a kind and certain smile. Your only job is to go out and do the work that proves them wrong. The dirt, it turns out, is always enough. If this story meant something to you, subscribe to our channel. We are dedicated to telling the stories of the quiet victors. In the comments below, tell us about a time you had to prove someone wrong, not with your words, but with your work. And finally, share this story. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that the only limits that matter are the ones we place on ourselves. Share it with someone who needs to hear, just once, that they are enough.